All right, Shalom. I want to start by giving our praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachak Wadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone who teach and rule well, and also to their elders, the men that taught them. I pray the Lord have peace, blessings, and mercy upon the households of the hopeful elect. This is the brother Shema one from the Great Millstone Houston Church. And I want to come with a quick lesson. I was reading this article that I came across on End Time Headlines, going into a toll that was taken on, I don't know how many Americans, but every year, I believe since 2001, they've been doing a toll to see if, things are getting worse for Americans financially. And with this toll, this is the worst that it's ever been, where American citizens feel the effect of things getting tighter, financially. And it put me in it put me in the spirit to do a lesson, because a lot of Americans act like things are okay now and they're going to continue to be okay just because they're able to continue in daily routines. The focus on the daily survivals, work, bills, the family, certain things like that, where just like it says in the days of Noah, we're not paying attention to, what's going on just because you're able to continue in your, your life, so to speak. But, Americans in their pride and simplicity, where it don't take much but, a distraction, but it's being felt, and the numbers don't lie. So with that, I'll read a little bit of this article, then I'll get a few precepts, and I pray this be edifying to the Lord's elect. So this is on End Time Headlines, and I'll post it in the comment section, Lord willing. It says April 28th, 2026. It says, new poll reveals that Americans feel worse off financially than at any point in 25 years. A new Gallup survey shows that more Americans than at any time in the past quarter century believe their personal financial situations are deteriorating. It says, amid persistent cost of living, amid persistent cost of living pressures and surging energy prices linked to the ongoing conflict with Iran. The poll conducted April 1st through the 15th, it says, found that 55% of respondents said their finances are getting worse. That figure exceeds last year's 53% and 2024's 47%. So showing you things are, gradually increasing for the worse, not the better. It says, marking the highest level since Gallup, I guess that's the name of the toll or the group that's doing this. It says Gallup began tracking the question in 2001. It says even surpassing readings during the pandemic, recession, and the 2008 financial crisis. So things are felt worse. And it's amazing, because I was thinking about this yesterday. It's like you can be at the moment of your life where you're making the most money financially, but you probably in the most debt, or you're literally paycheck to paycheck like you never been before. A lot of people have similarities, in that aspect, but it just shows you things are not getting better, and it's just gonna get more pressed up, leading all the way to the point of the MOTB. That's what we're looking forward to. But these Americans, they're gonna get hit hard, because they believe peace and safety is gonna be forever. Let me keep reading. Let me jump all the way down. It says Gallup's results paint a picture of sustained caution. It says fewer than half of Americans rate their current finances as excellent or good. So it says fewer than half of Americans rate their current finances as excellent or good. And, I don't believe that. I do not believe that. Just look at the state of the economy. Enough said. It says with affordability issues, it says spanning housing, healthcare, and everyday expenses far outpacing other concerns like taxes or debt. Yeah, because everybody, the majority of people are struggling. That's just the condition of how this place is headed. But let's go. Let me read this since I quoted it in the beginning, Matthew 24. Matthew chapter 24 in verse 36. I'm going to read it in the NLT. It says, however, no one knows the day or hour when these things will happen, not even the angels in heaven or the Son himself. Only the Father knows. When the Son of Man returns, it will be like it was in Noah's days, or in Noah's day. In those days before the flood, the people were enjoying banquets and parties and weddings right up to the time Noah entered his boat. And just showing you, well, let me read the next verse. It says, people didn't realize what was going on until the flood came and swept them all away. This is the way it will be when the Son of Man comes. And hitting the point, most people now, just like it was in the days of Noah, focusing on the daily things, like I said, still doing those things. So, with that taking place, they're unaware of what was, building up, what was on the way. And what was on the way is what Noah was prophesying about. That flood was coming. The Lord was gonna come down with great wrath and judgment. And although people were able to continue to live their quote unquote life, right, they weren't aware of what was building up until it actually came. Just like it is in these days. Things are happening, taking place, and people are feeling the effects of things. Meanwhile, you're still able to do whatever it is that you like doing, or you have some type of comfort. And Americans get caught up in that bullshit. We're in 1 Thessalonians, the 5th chapter, is going to come and take them by surprise. Let me go there. Because according to the signs, like it tells you in 2 Ezra, the 9th chapter, measure the times diligently within themselves. And we see the signs coming to pass, of what the Lord told us about what was going to take place in the last days. And according to that, things are not going to, revert and take off and, change for the better. We're at the end of an age. We're at the end of Esau's age. And this is the effects of it. We're in, what am I looking for? 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 in verse 3. We're in, the people have been rocked to sleep, thinking just like what we're about to read, whenever the signs show otherwise. This is 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 and 3. It says, for when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. So it's going to catch them by surprise. Hey, although the prophets are out and the signs are even, evident that it's not peace and safety time, yet people are still caught up in themselves, distracted, the cares of this life, chasing whatever it is out there that you could, chase as if it's worth something to benefit, but it's going to come up on them all of a sudden, just like a woman, in in labor. And you cannot stop contractions. You know, just like it tells you in 2nd Esdras, what is that, the 16th chapter, how it's going to be. Let me get that. 2nd Esdras chapter 16. And although, you know, people look at us like we're crazy or we sound like a broken record, whenever it happens, it's going to be too late for them. Because right now it's the build up of something is about to come. Something major is happening. But due to everyday comforts, it's not that important right now. This is 2nd Esdras chapter 16 in verse 37. It says, "Behold, the plagues draw nigh and are not slack, as when a woman with child in the 9th month bringeth forth her son with 2 or 3 hours of her birth. Great pains compass her womb, which pains when the child cometh forth, they slack not a moment." So, you know, just like going into them labor pains, they don't stop. They continually to increase until the time of the baby, right? It says, "Even so shall not the plagues be slack to come upon the earth." So in comparison to a woman in labor, that's how plagues are going to come up on this earth. They're not going to stop. They're going to continue to increase. All right. Until it's time to give birth. And guess what? Yahawashi is coming back. All right. But it says, verse 39, it says, "Even so shall not the plagues be slack to come upon the earth. And the world shall mourn, and and sorrows shall come upon it on every side. O my people, hear my word, make you ready to the battle, and in those evils be even as pilgrims upon the earth." Now, that's what a lot of people don't care to hear. And, you know, that's not going to happen. Of course, nobody wants to be in an uncomfortable situation. But according to prophecy, that's something that we got to prepare for. Getting ready to a battle where our faith is finna be tested. You know, it's finna be a time like never before, targeting the Israelites. Jeremiah 30:7, Jacob's trouble. You know, but a lot of people aren't prepared for these things because the comforts that they have today, not focusing on, you know, preparing for what's to come, losing out. I ain't gonna say losing, just you know, whatever it takes to make it. And guess what? Sacrifices are gonna be made too. Just like the Lord tells us now, keep our eyes single. You know, if we seek the kingdom first, and then whatever we need will be added unto us. You know, especially when it comes to, you know, our life. Yahweh Bashim Yahushua controls that. But, you know, that's it. I just came across that little article. Wanted to get there real quick. So I pray this lesson was edifying to the Lord's elect. Until the next time I say, Shalom.